everyone, welcome back to Pominos. Hope we're all doing really well. We're nearly at the end. We've got 2 more of these series to do. Depending on what the trades are today, we might try and bundle it all tomorrow night into one big finale, and then we can crack on with some quality off-season content. I'm really enjoying this, though. It's been really good because I really enjoy discussing other clubs. So if you are new around here, smash that like button, smash that subscribe. Does help the channel out really lots. We're really caking them in, so I'm really enjoying it. And I'm a bit of a sucker for a discussion, aren't I? So let's get straight into it without any further ado. And this was the first trade of the day. Pick 44 for Toby Bedford, the crafty player from Melbourne Football Club. And, I mean, it's about his money, isn't it? Let's be honest, you know what I mean? It's about his money. It's not probably the most exciting position, but GWS probably have a hole here, you know, for someone who can play that forward role. And Toby Bedford, although he hasn't set the AFL alight, he comes from a good system, and they do have an uncanny knack, I think, of making these players fit into that system. It's a great opportunity for Toby as well, to be fair. Opportunities limited, if we are honest, at the D's, and only 22, isn't he? So, I mean, it's pretty tasty if you look at it that way. Did get quite a few game time this year, didn't he? He had 16 games, kicking the 9 snags. Decent-ish player for them. And it's going to be an interesting one because, I mean, pick 44, when you've got all of GWS's picks, which we come on to, isn't really a big caper. And it gives Melbourne some breathing room and some little shuffles that they can do and back their system in. So, really not the most exciting trade, is it? But, I mean, it feels this is trading sometimes. We don't get exciting ones. We were blessed with exciting ones, though, this week. We're coming on to that. This one here, pick 13, a future first and a second for 44, 67 and Luke Jackson. The worst kept secret in the AFL. Luke Jackson finds a new home to Fremantle. And it's a really... This here is an interesting one, I think. Some would say about the money. I always go back to Jeremy Cameron, though. That was 3 firsts and 2 seconds coming back. This is 2 firsts and a third and a fourth coming back, technically. Probably when you put it into that grander scheme of things, it's about the same, isn't it? I'm not too sure that it needed that second, to be honest. But Melbourne have done well here, and at the end of the day, your value is always perceived of what it is to the team. Jackson's going to work with Darcy, which allows Lobb, you would imagine, now to be played as a pure forward, which the rumours are is what he wants. Great bit of business, really, for both parties. I think Melbourne probably would see themselves that they've lost this deal because Jackson has been a big part of what they're building. But I suppose they are replacing him supposedly with Brodie Grundy, which on a talent level now, you'd say that's probably a dub for Melbourne. Long-term, probably not, because Jackson, it's no doubt he's going to be one heck of a footballer. Finds his new home, local lad, and I think a big thing for this one for me is I always get the uncanny impression that if a player gets to their dream move, it sometimes makes them a better player, particularly when they're young. Jackson's got it. I mean, you've got a very young kid who's won a flag, which is a huge thing as well to add into it. But it makes Fremantle a deadly side. It really does. And I think this just has gone understated because a trade happened after. But I like this deal. I think this deal, in the end, will balance out. I do. And I think that Fremantle probably will be the winners of that one. Then we've got this one. This one's been a hot topic of discussion. I don't want to cover it too much because I've covered the arse end of it, but Will Setterfield for 60 and 66 went for a future 4. So effectively, Carlton have, don't want to use the phrase delisted him because that's a ridiculous phrase. They've given him for free. I prefer that. It feels like it's more palatable. I thought Nick Austin was quite good on this one. He did come out and say that Essendon offered what Carlton weren't willing to. He's a mid 24-25 coming up to Will Setterfield, played a handful of games, probably deserves to play more games. I kind of don't like it from a trade perspective. These are my issues with the trade period because free agency isn't really free agency. which causes these deals to actually happen. If it was a proper league with proper rules, Will could have just walked without having to have the threat of PSD if that's what he's wanted at Essendon. That's that thing that I kind of like Nick Austin's guile on this one, that I think this is the kind of thing that makes the AFL question their system. It was obvious that Will had an agenda that he wanted to fulfill, and rightly so. He's a 24-year-old young man. I don't begrudge him that. I would be the same. Even if I was playing for Carlton, would I want to take a year or 2 years and have some game time? These are footballers at the end of the day. They want to play. Hopefully that pays us back. I think if I was a player at Carlton, seeing that Vossi and co talk about opportunity a lot, opportunity should also stem for an opportunity to play my craft if I can't get in. And I thought Austin was right. We have got depth in there and young players coming through. So good deal for Essendon. Don't think you can argue Essendon have won that, to be honest. And I won't even hazard to try and hazard it. I'd say that, though, in the long term, Carlton may win that with the fact it really does validate the culture that they're trying to build. This one here, pick 5, a future third and a fourth, acquired a future fourth, 46 and Rankine. So effectively, that is basically 5 for Rankine if we just break it down into real crux. Is Isaac Rankine worth pick 5? I don't think so. I think he's a very good footballer, and I'm a huge fan of Isaac Rankine. I don't personally think he is worth pick 5, though. I think he's a tremendous footballer, though. I can't argue that. Pick 5 puts you around, dependent on what the other guys do, bearing in mind that that's changed a lot. But it's in Sheezel, Humphrey, Cameron, Clark territory, dependent on what they do. You'd imagine Cadmaner's now off the radar, going pick 2, or pick 1 to GWS. You'd imagine that's what happens. But if that turns into Sheezel for Gold Coast Suns, which might not do because of North, but if that turns into Bailey Humphries, it's probably breaking even, to be honest. I think Humphries will probably do a little bit more for Gold Coast system than Rankine. For Adelaide, though, it's a no-brainer. Again, a South Australian returns home. Something they need. They pair him up with Josh Rochelle, which makes their forward line tasty, and there will be a team to watch. Again, this is one of them deals that it's all now dependent on what Gold Coast do with pick 5 to see if we can have some value there. But this is the nature of the beast. These young players are coming. And then we've got the big one. I've broken this down into like bite-sized morsels as the AFL did it. I thought they did. So the first one we'll talk about is Jason Horne-Francis and a third for a future first and 43. And I think if you break it down like this, and then we go to the end, we can make a fair assessment. But that was the first to start of the deal. Now, obviously, when you build it like this, Port have won this deal, right? Tremendously, because we're going to come on to what else they've done. But breaking it down like this, that's a huge dub, because there's no way Port are going to finish bottom 4. Next year, they're going to be in the 8. So that's a dub for them. So technically, you would say that they've lost a first, gained Jason Horne-Francis, who was pick 1 the year just gone, and 43 for a future third. That bit doesn't make any sense, but it does as we come on to it. So that part of the deal, Port have won. This one here then became pick 3 for pick 1, which bizarre from GWS, because my gut tells me they're after Cadman harder than anything. And there's no way on God's green that North would have taken Cadman. They have zero need to take a key forward. Zero need. They've got massive concerns elsewhere. So for me, makes sense for them to split that pick 1, in my honest opinion, and how it's formulated and who's got pick 1 now. I would say North have won, because I think that would be Wardlaw as starters. Wardlaw potentially because he's more insidey, and then Sheezel, which is a huge dub. Huge dub. And then that breaks into this, that the pick 8 and future second and third went for Junior Rioli. Interesting enough, you could argue that in this part of the deal, they paid more for Junior Rioli than they did Francis, which is truly bizarre. But Junior Rioli is an incredible footballer, it has to be said, and I think could build it. And the surplus picks here came in this way. So Port end up with a future second. North end up with pick 2 and 40 from Eagles. Pick 12 went to Eagles, and 53 and 57. I think when you actually break it down into core hard facts, I think Port will say they've won this because they've acquired the 2 players that they obviously set their heart on. And I think with some of the picks coming back, it kind of there is enough managing room that if they did want to get back into the first next year, they could probably do that with the future picks. The GWS one blags my head. I think everyone should be unanimous they've lost that trade because they've given up pick 12 purely to get Cadman when I would have said logically Cadman wasn't going. I know it's a risk, but that's it. I really stand by that the real winners in this trade are North Melbourne. Second and third, dependent on what way they go. Like I say, Wardlaw and Starters, that's an insider and an outside who can pinch it inside. My gut tells me it's Sheasel and Wardlaw, which if they do that, honestly, that is a huge stinking dub for them. Huge stinking dub. Mega trade, though. It's good to see, wasn't it? We talk about them all the time, but it was good to see. But, I mean, for me, I think North have won that trade. I think tied second would be Eagles and Port. I think GWS get the rum end of the stick on that one. It's going to be an interesting one, really, when you look at that. That's one of them ones that time will validate it. But for me, I think Wardlaw is going to be a lot better footballer than Jason Horne-Francis. And he's a Victorian, local lad, so you haven't got that flight risk. And Sheasel's the same. Very good, honest young boy locally. And I think it's going to be an exciting time for North. North will be exciting if they pair them 2 together. When you've got Zerha as well and Larky, they've got some good young players there. Simkin out the back, Unakis Davis. I think that's an exciting time. And they've got a load of mid picks, which I think is really important because I think that they're going to go a bit mature age as well. So Ethan Phillips would fall into them categories of where them picks are. So I think they could really build quite a healthy list from losing Jason Horne-Francis, who has played a handful of games for them. So I think long-term, it's a good win. I know North fans are angry, and I understand. I'm a Carlton fan. I've had pain too. Telling you, hold your horses, see what your list management do, because I think they could benefit you. That's it then. I've enjoyed these. I'm going to miss doing these. We've only got, potentially 2 more to go. So drop a like, drop a sub. See you next time.